Hi, so welcome to Mindful Movement 4. So Mindful Movement 4, we're going to start in standing. So if you have a book or a block and maybe a strap, we may need to use them through this practice. Just have them handy. Make sure you have some water, stay hydrated. If ever at any point you need to stop, feel free to do so and join back in when you're ready. So if you want to come to a short edge of your mat and bring your toes out so they are hip width apart and the heels are behind them. So we've got a nice straight line with the feet. Push into the big toe side and push into the little toe side. So you're getting that whole grounding through the left and right sides of the feet. And then feel the weight in the heel and the ball of the foot as well. And just take a feather-light touch with the toes so we're not gripping with that mat. Then roll the shoulders up towards the ears, then let them drop down towards the hips, opening a little weight through that chest. Turn the palms forward, take a close of the eyes, or a soft gaze to the floor if closing the eyes doesn't feel comfortable. And then just take a scan of the body from the head down to the fingertips, down to the toes. I'll give you a couple of moments to scan. Hopefully that scan of the body's made you aware of anything that you've got tight within the body, being aware of any kind of injuries you may be looking after. So from the feet, we're stacked nice and strong and grounded into the mat. Have a little micro bend in the knees so we're not locking those knees out, which will engage those quads. And then just feel like you're activating those quads and lifting the knees. So the quads is the front of the thighs. Feel like you're squeezing between the bum and the hamstrings in the upper legs, so we get a little contraction through those bums. Squeeze the belly back towards the spine. Tuck that tailbone down slightly, so we take that arch out of the lower back. So bringing our spine into a neutral place. Then just raise the chest a little without flaring the ribs. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Just bring that chin in slightly, just so we get a little stretch through the back of that neck. And then grow up through the crown. Good, strong anatomical position. And just hold it here for a few more breaths, seeing whether having that activation through the body has calmed that swaying of the body with those eyes closed. So we should feel nice and strong in this Tadasana pose, mountain pose. So while we're feeling that strength of the body and the grounding to the floor, start to think about your breath. How's your breath entering and exiting your body? Does it feel like you're taking short, sharp inhales and exhales? Does it feel like your breath is quite automatic and natural and just flowing quite easily? Or are you started already to take some nice, long, deep breaths in, filling those bellies with air as you do so? If you are short and sharp with your breaths, maybe take them a little longer to make them just quite a natural breathing pattern. If you're already in that natural breathing pattern, try and take it a little deeper, feeling like you're blowing that air into that belly. And as that belly expands on the inhale, it means you've pushed that diaphragm down towards the belly, and that space for the lungs has grown so those lungs can expand. Then as you breathe out, you draw that belly back towards the spine, which makes that diaphragm lift, pushes those lungs to squeeze that air back out of the nose or mouth. And just notice whether you're breathing in the nose or mouth. Just do that a couple of more times, just not changing anything except for maybe the length of the breath. And then see whether you can take those breaths in and out through the nose only, rather than using the mouth. But feel free to use the mouth if you need to. And see whether if you're just using your nose, you're connecting to that Ujjayi breath. That Ujjayi breath is that slight constriction in the back of the throat. Still keeping that body nice and activated, those glutes, those bums squeezing, those thighs, lifting those those kneecaps to straighten those legs. The shoulder blades squeeze together to send those shoulder sockets a little further back, so we get a little expansion through the front of the chest. Taking one more breath in this position, in and out through the nose. And see whether you can continue with that breath in and out through the nose and that slight restriction in the back of the throat. But if it means just taking a normal breath, obviously do what you wish. Do what feels right for you. Open the eyes. Relax the whole of the muscles in the body. Start to bring that chin in towards the chest. Start to curl through the shoulders, dropping those shoulder sockets forward, rolling through that upper part of the spine, so with the cervical, the thoracic. And as you start to roll through that lower part of the spine, start to bend those knees to protect that lower back. Don't hold anything in the arms, let them be nice and heavy. And as those fingertips come down to the floor, just take a moment here, relaxing through the head and the neck. And then curling back up through that spine, keeping those knees bent as you curl through that lumbar spine at the base. As you start to curl back through that thoracic, start to straighten the legs, the space between the shoulder blades. And then starting to lift that head. And as the head lifts, we send those shoulders into those back pockets. And again, tuck that chin into the chest. Start to curl the shoulders over. Start to curl through that upper spine. Let the arms become heavy here. Start to curl through that lower spine, and as you do, start to bend those knees. Slowly bringing those fingertips down towards the floor. Getting that bend through those hip flexors, using that psoas muscle to bend through the hips. And hold it here for a breath with the fingertips to the mat. And then again, curl back up through that spine. Arms stay heavy, articulating through that spine, one vertebra at a time. Feeling that spine grow taller as those shoulders start to stack over those hips and that head sits on top of that spine and the shoulders relax back into those back pockets. One more time, tucking the chin in, rolling the shoulders up and down, letting the arms become heavy as you start to roll through the upper spine between the ribs. As you start to roll from the waist down to that sacrum of the lower part of the spine, bending those knees and slowly letting those fingertips come down towards the floor, bending through the hips, and just let those fingertips touch the mat. Take a hold of the elbows, opposite hand, opposite elbow, and make circles with those elbows on the floor in one direction. And then make circles in the other direction, still not holding any tension in that neck. Still feeling all parts of the feet touching the floor without a grip through those toes. And then release those arms to become heavy. Bring the hands onto the shins, straighten the legs, straighten the back. Come into that tabletop back. Holding it here with straight legs for a couple of breaths. Trying to feel the weight in both the ball and the heel. The hips stacking over the knees over the ankles. Try not to grip with those toes. Then take a breath out, let that body fold, draw the belly back as you fold over those legs, bending them if you need to or keeping them straight to get that hamstring stretch. Holding either the ankles or the big toes, or maybe bringing those hands flat on the floor, depending on what range of movement you have in that posterior chain. Then your next breath in, we're going to sweep the arms out and lift up through those backs, lifting from the hips, bringing the hands up to the ceiling, palms come together. Interlace the fingers. Bring your right foot over your left foot and then take the body over to that left side, feeling that stretch all the way down that right side of the body. Keep tucking that tailbone down, drawing the bellies back, relaxing the shoulders down to the hips, but reaching up through the front of the hands. One more breath here. Then bring those arms back to the center and then start to swan dive again with that right leg crossed over the left. bringing yourself into a fold over those thighs. Bring those hands to wherever they reach. You may feel a little unstable with those legs crossed. You may feel like you get a little more stretch through the outside of that left thigh into the glute on that left side. You may feel it more even on the right side. Hold it here in forward fold for a couple of breaths. Let go of the head, let it become heavy. Then your next breath in, bring those arms up and out. Bring those shoulders back over those hips. Bring an interlace of the fingers. Bring your right foot back. Bring your left foot over your right foot. And then take lateral flexion over to your right side. Feeling the stretch down the left, relaxing the shoulders back towards the hips. Keeping the tailbone tucked under, belly drawn back. Arms long, shoulders relaxed. Then bring yourself back into the centre and start to swan dive down, folding from the hips rather than curling the spine, bringing those hands to wherever they reach. And then bringing them to the shins, the big toes or the floor. Wherever they've come to, let that head go and feel that stretch, maybe more on that right side hip, into those hamstrings on that right leg. Holding it here just for another breath. Then start to bring those arms up and out and around, lifting up through the shoulders, stacking them back over the hips. Bring the palms together, interlace the fingers. Step the left foot back to same distance as hips. And then take lateral flexion over to the right side with both legs in line with the hips. So we push down into that left foot as much as we can and stretch through those intercostal muscles on those ribs. Try not to bring those shoulders up, let them relax. Come back to the centre and then take those hands over to the left side. Push in this time to the right foot. Try not to arch in the lower back. Try and tuck that tailbone down and relax the shoulders, lengthen the arms. One more breath here. Then bring the body back up to the centre. Cactus the arms, squeeze the shoulder blades together, lift up through the chest, lift up through the gaze. One more breath. Then raise those hands again back up towards the ceiling and swan dive down from the hips, bringing those hands to wherever they reach. Let go of the head and the neck. Breath in comes up to a half lift. Place the hands on the shins, nice straight back, keeping those legs as straight as you can. Then swan dive back down. Next breath in, bring the arms up, out and around. Bring those shoulders back over those hips. Palms together at the top. Bring your left hand forward, your right hand back. Rotate to the right side of the room. Try and keep the hips pointing forward. Twist comes from the waist. The right shoulder goes back, the left shoulder comes around. Maybe gaze back towards that right thumb if you're happy with the neck to turn that much. Try not to let the hips follow. Keep them facing that short edge of the mat. Your next breath in, raise those hands again back up towards the ceiling. This time bring your right hand forward, your left hand back. Rotate from the waist, keep those hips pointing forward. Shoulders come along for the trip. You may feel one side's tighter than the other. For me, this side is definitely tighter to turn. Relax through the shoulders, send the left shoulder back, the right shoulder around. Use those oblique muscles in the side of the waist to twist. Your next breath in, bring those hands again back up towards the ceiling. Palms come together. Breath out, cactus the arms and lift up that chest. Reach the hands back up towards the ceiling. Your next breath out, swan dive down, bending from the hips, bringing the hands down to wherever they reach. Your next breath in, raise up to a half lift, place the hands on the shins. Nice straight back, stretching through those hamstrings. And your breath out allows you to fold over those legs again. Your next breath in, bring those arms up and around. Lift those shoulders back over those hips. Palms come together at the top. Then release the hands down behind the back. Take an interlace of the fingers. Push the hands down to the floor. Squeeze the shoulder blades together. Create space in the front of the body. Bring your right foot over your left foot. Make sure both feet are grounded. Your next breath out, fold over those legs. Fold from the hips rather than rolling through the spine. Then lift those hands away from the base of the spine, sending them up to the ceiling, but only if your shoulders are happy to do so. Once you've got the space in the shoulders and your hands have gone as far as they can go, see whether you can draw those palms together just to squeeze those shoulder blades a little tighter. One more breath here. Then release the hands down to the back. Slowly bring those spines up to straight. Shoulders over the hips. Take the right foot back. Take the left foot over the right. And find good grounding in the feet first. Breathe in, lengthen the spine. Breathe out, fold over those hips. Lifting those arms away from the back if you're happy to do so. Make sure both feet are nice and stable into the floor. Lifting the arms as high as you wish. Once you've taken the arms as high as they want to go, try and squeeze those palms together. Lift those arms maybe a little higher, but work with what your shoulders are happy to do. One more breath here. Your next breath in, slowly raise those shoulders again. Lift them back over the hips, bring the hands back to the bum. Release the feet back to hip width apart. Release the hands, give those arms a shake. They may feel a little tight through those elbows and through those triceps. Your next breath in, raise the hands up towards the ceiling, palms come together. Your breath out, swan dives, folding all the way over those legs, bringing the hands down to wherever they reach. Let go of the head. Breath in comes up to a half lift, place the hands on the shins. Straighten the back. This time release the hands down to the floor, bend the knees as much as you need to, step one foot back to the back of the mat, step the other foot back to plank. And we're going to hold plank for a couple of breaths, pushing the heels back, crown forward, soften the elbows. Remember, if this feels too strong, just drop the knees but stay strong in the shoulders. Push those chest cavities back into the back of the body. Squeeze the bum to activate those glutes. Squeeze the thighs to lift the knees to activate those legs. One more breath here. Then start to paddle those feet as you start to raise those hips up to downward facing dog. Sending the gaze back towards the toes, the knees or the hips, stretching through the back of the neck. Paddling one foot at a time, nice and slowly, bringing one heel down, then the other. Having the feet hip width apart, hands shoulder width apart. And then start to move through the hips a little. Maybe drop one knee down a little closer to the mat and turn through the hips slightly from one side to the other. Maybe start to bring that into the shoulders. Feeling one shoulder dip as the same knee dips at the time. And really move through that down dog. Rather than keeping it in stillness, keep it moving. One more breath doing this. And then bring yourself to stillness in your down dog. Encouraging those heels back. Widen the fingers, push into those hands, index finger, thumb, little finger. Your next breath in comes forward to a plank. Then we drop down with the knees. We lift up the feet. We slowly then release that body down towards the floor. Release the feet down. Push into the hands and lift up with those chests. Hold it here for a couple of breaths. Your next breath out, release that chest back down. Tuck under the toes, bring those chests back to the thighs and hold it here for a couple of breaths, stretching through the armpits, down through those rib cages, down into those waists, stretching through the lower back, stretching through the bases of the feet. Then push into those hands and feet as you raise the hips back to down dog. Squeeze the heels back, or if those hamstrings are still a little tight, maybe take a little paddle through those feet. Then squeeze those heels back. Come down onto the knees. Bring your right foot in between the hands. Make sure the knee's over that ankle. Toes are facing forward in front of the heels. Tuck the back foot under, lift that back knee. Then drop that left heel internally in towards the centre line. Reach forward with your left hand. Then raise the body up and over the hips to find warrior two. So sink into your right knee and try and get that right thigh as parallel to the floor as you can take it. We're pushing into the outside of that back foot. We're pushing into the whole of that front foot, but try not to grip with the toes. Externally rotate that right hip so we feel that stretch through those inner adductors, but we feel the contraction through the outside of that right thigh. Our right arm stretches forward, our left arm stretches back. We gaze towards those right fingertips. We try and slightly internally rotate that left thigh, but externally rotate the left hip. Pushing nice and strong into the foot, using the outside muscle on the outside of the calf to push that left outside edge into the mat. Maybe sink a little lower in those hips, just making sure that knee has a good line over that ankle. Taking one more breath here in this position. Then windmill the hands down either side of that right foot. Drop that back left knee. Uncurl those toes. Bring your right knee back to meet the left. Take a round of cat-cow here. Breath in, lifts up the head, lifts up the bum, drops the belly. And the breath out, we fold everything back in, the chin into the chest, the tailbone tucks. Centre of the spine lifts. Then bring it back to that neutral place. Tabletop position. Step both feet back to a plank. Holding it in plank for a couple of breaths. Remember you can drop the knees if you feel you need to. Or keep those heels pushing back, engaging the thighs, switching on the glutes, switching on the core strength of the belly. Pushing that chest cavity back into that space between the shoulder blades. Crown forward, heels back. Then paddle those feet as you lift up with those hips. Bringing one heel down at a time. Then start to move that into the hips. Swaying the hips. Dipping one hip at a time. Then maybe bring that into the shoulders. Moving that downward dog with a little bit of fluidity. Moving through those joints, bending through those elbows and knees. And then bring those heels to stillness and encourage those heels back. Nice, long, deep breath in. And a long breath out, still using that nose if you can. Come forward to plank on your inhale. Drop down with the knees and lift up the feet. Bring those elbows into the sides of the body as you release that body down to the floor. Bring the feet back to the mat. Push into the hands and lift up the chest. Maybe you can come a little higher this time. But send those shoulders into those back pockets to widen through the front side of the chest. Push those tailbones down. Try not to flare those ribs too much. Try and protect that lower back. Try and extend through the upper part of the spine, out of the crown, through the cervical part of the spine. which is the neck, and through that thoracic, which is in between that chest. Your next breath out, release that chest back down. Tuck under those toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Hold it here in our variation of child's pose for a couple of breaths with the toes tucked under, stretching through that connective tissue at the bases of the feet, stretching through the lower part of the back, those QL muscles, stretching through those latissimus dorsos, those back wings that go from the base of the spine all the way up to connect to the arms. Stretching through the intercostal muscles in the ribs, lifting and stretching through those arms, using those deltoid muscles to lift the arms into flexion and those triceps to straighten those elbows. Then push into those hands and feet, lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. Take a moment in down dog in stillness. Then coming back onto the knees. This time bring your left foot through in between those hands. When that left foot's brought through, just try and track the left knee over that left ankle. Then tuck your back toes under and lift your back knee. Then drop your right heel to the midline of the mat. Reach forward with the right hand and then lift that right hand up and over so the shoulders come over the hips. So I'm facing in the opposite direction now so you can see the back line of the pose. Remember, sink that left thigh down so we can get that parallel to that mat. That left knee turns out, so we switch on the glutes to turn. We relax through the inner abductors to stretch. We push into the front foot, we push into the back foot. The knee gets straightened by the quads on the front of the thigh, and we push into the outside edge of that right foot as much as we can, but also push into the big toe end. So the spine from the crown all the way down to the tailbone should be in a nice long line. I could draw a line down the centre rather than reaching forward or back. The arms are long, the left hand forward, right hand back, both in line with the shoulders. Unless your shoulders are fatiguing, then bring them to the hips. Relax the shoulders down, lengthen the arms a little more, sink into the hips a little further. The gaze to that left hand is a good drishti point, a focal point. Long breaths in, long breaths out, through the nose if you can. Stabilising here, pushing and grounding into that mat. One more breath. Then bring those hands down either side of that front foot. Step that foot back to meet the right, to find a plank position here. Push the heels back, crown forward, soften the elbows. Then start to paddle those feet as you lift up through those hips. Have a nod and a shake of those heads. Move those hips, bringing them into action as you paddle those feet. Then start to dip through one shoulder at a time, moving through those shoulder sockets. Making a lot of movement in this downward facing dog. Maybe give those heads a nod and a shake. And then bring those heels to stillness. A good, strong downward facing dog. Come forward to plank on your inhale. And drop down the knees, lift up the feet, bring those elbows in as you release down to the floor. Bring the feet back to the mat, push into the hands, lift up the chest, take it into your upward facing dog, however high that might be. It might be that you're still fairly low, it might be that you're still in baby cobra. It doesn't matter, so long as you feel the extension through the front side of the body and the contraction through the back of the body. It doesn't matter where you take it. One more breath here. Then release back down, tuck under those toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Hold it here for a couple of breaths, forehead to the mat, Reaching forward with the fingertips, reaching back with the sit bones towards the heels, stretching the feet, the lower back, the rib cages, all the way up to those fingertips. Then push into those hands and feet, lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. Take a paddle or bring it to stillness. Bring your knees down to the floor. Step your right foot in between those hands. So your choice to use a block here, maybe bring that block to the inside of that right foot. Bring your right hand onto the block. Tuck your back toes under and lift up that back knee. Drop down that left heel to the midline. Bring your left hand onto the shoulder. Turn the shoulders and the hips. Then raise that left hand towards the ceiling. Still keeping bent into that right knee, so keep the hips low. Try and keep the knee over that right ankle. Then reach forward with that left hand towards the front of the mat. Try not to let that shoulder drop. Keep the chest open to the long edge. Push in to the outside of that back foot. Push into the whole of the front foot. Maybe gaze towards those left fingertips. Push that right knee out a little more with that right elbow. Sink those hips a little lower. So remember, these blocks can be replaced by books if you need to. Whatever you have in your home, or you may already have the block. One more breath. Then release that left hand back down. Remove the block. Bring the left knee to the floor, the right knee to meet. Tabletop position. Take a round of cat-cow. Breath in, lifts up the head, lifts up the bum, drops the belly. And the breath out, folds everything back in. Chin to the chest, tailbone tucks, centre of the spine lifts. Bring it back to a neutral space. Step both feet back to a plank. Nice long line from the crown to the heels. Belly's drawn back, glutes squeezing, thighs lifting those kneecaps. Then start to paddle those feet as you lift up those hips. As you start the paddle, bring in the hips a little, moving them from side to side. Then start to include those shoulders. Maybe nod and shake those heads. And then bring those heels to stillness. Squeeze them back. We're going to flow a vinyasa this time rather than holding them. So come forward to a plank on your inhale. Drop down the knees, lift up the feet. Bring the elbows in as you release down to the floor. Bring the feet down, push into the hands, lift up the chest. Release the chest down. Tuck under those toes. Bring those chests back towards those thighs. Push into your hands and feet, lift up the hips, squeeze the heels back. Take a gaze back towards the toes, the knees or the hips to get a stretch through that neck. Coming back down onto your knees. Bring your left foot through in between the hands. Make sure the knee's over the ankle. This time bring your block to the inside of your left foot or a book. Bring your left hand over. Lift up that back knee by tucking the back toes under. Drop that heel of the right into the midline. Lift and open the chest. Open through that right hip. So once the body's turning that long edge of the mat, then raise the hand towards the ceiling. Then bring your right hand forward towards the front of the mat. Using that left arm to keep that left knee turned out. Sinking into those hips. Opening through that front side of the body to the right side of the room. Push into the outside of that back foot, but also that big toe. So that whole of that right foot is pushing into the mat, but more into that outside edge. That stretch is coming from those fingertips all the way down to that heel on that right side. Reach as far forward with that right hand as you can. Keep externally rotating that left knee. So we've got a nice long line from the front foot to the back foot. One more breath in this position. Then release that right hand back down. Remove the block. Bring your left foot back to meet your right, plank position, and hold it here for a couple of breaths. Good strong planks. Engage everything from the waist down. Push into those hands to stabilise. Then paddle those feet as you lift up those hips. Moving those hips into that paddle, then bringing the shoulders to include into that movement. And then bring those heels to stillness. Last flow vinyasa of your day. Coming forward to plank on your inhale. Drop down the knees, lift up the feet. Bring the elbows in as you slowly release the whole torso down to the floor. Bring the feet down, push into the hands, lift up those chests. Release the chest back down. Tuck under those toes, bring those chests back towards those thighs. Push into those hands and feet, lift up the hips, squeeze those heels back. And then bring yourself into a seat, bums into the centre of the mat. Either swing the legs around or cross the feet under the body. So I'm going to face forward, but you can still face that short edge of the mat. So I'll do a mirror image here for you. So bending into your right leg, your left leg, and bring that left ankle onto the top of that right thigh. Bring the hands behind, turn the fingertips towards the back of the room. Then slowly start to bring that right foot in. Remembering all the time to squeeze those left toes back towards the shins. Bringing that right foot in as far as you can and externally rotating that left knee out. So we're taking the external rotation through that left hip. So it's a little similar to pigeon pose, although we're not getting the stretch through the hip flexor on that right leg. If you feel comfortable here and you want to take it further, bring that foot in a little closer and that chest a little closer towards those thighs. Still maintaining that flexion in that left foot. If you have the ability to thread your left arm through and your right arm around, maybe hug that leg in a little closer and push that knee out a little further. Just holding it here for a couple of breaths. So this might not be accessible to you to where I've come to. So if it isn't in your legs here, so long as you feel a stretch through this piriformis muscle on the outside of that left hip, you're doing a good job. Lift up the chest if you're not quite as close as what I was. One more breath in this position. And then straightening that right leg back out, bring your left leg to meet. Take a bend now into your right leg. Bring your right side of ankle onto the top of that left thigh. Toes back to the shin. Bring the hands back behind the body. Walk that left foot in towards the bum. And find a place first. If it starts to pinch, maybe just hold it here. Keep externally rotating that right hip by pushing that right knee out a little further. Still flexing through the toes of that right foot. If you can bring it a little further in, bring it a little further forward. And remember, you can always thread your right hand through and your left hand around to grab a hold of that shin on that left leg. Squeezing that chest in towards that foot. Lifting up and relaxing the shoulders. Remember, you may not be this deep. It may not be that you can bring your hands away from the mat. They may still be needed to keep you in balance. And this left leg may be a lot further forward than what mine is now. Just holding here, just for another couple of breaths. And then releasing that foot back to the mat. Bring both legs out straight, give those legs a little paddle. Bring the feet to the short edge where they should be already. Bring the hands behind. We're going to take a hip flexor stretch here. So bring both feet in so they're just about 1.5 foot away from the bum. Fingertips either pointing in or out. We're just going to take a stretch through that front side of the body as we've contracted it with that last pose. Push into the feet, slowly raise up those hips, bringing those hips up towards the ceiling, the gaze towards the ceiling. Try and squeeze the shoulder blades together, squeeze the bum to lift the hips a bit higher. And try and hold it here just for another couple of breaths, pushing into the whole of the feet. Toes in front of the heels, knees are hip width apart. One more breath. And then slowly release that bum back down to the middle of the mat. Bring the feet out forward, bring the arms to shoulder height. Slowly and mindfully make your way to the mat. If you want to come down really quick, feel free to do so. Maybe when you get to that point where you wish to collapse, you'll hold it for 3 breaths. 1 breath in and out. Breath 2 in and out. Breath 3 in and out. And slowly let that body come down to the floor. Bring the knees in towards the chest. Give those knees a squeeze. Let the lower spine stay down on the floor. Plug the shoulder blades into the mat. Create space through the front of the chest. Squeeze the knees a little closer, a little tighter. And then make circles with knees on the ceiling in one direction. Massage into that lower spine. Then take circles back in the opposite direction. Then squeeze those knees back in towards the chest. Then release the feet to the floor. Either let the knees drop internally with the feet out mat width apart, or bring the legs long to the ends of the mat. Turn the palms up towards the ceiling. Let the fingers gently curl. Take a turn of the head in one direction, bringing it back through centre, taking it over to the opposite side. Back into centre. Relax the shoulders down. Let the feet turn out if the legs are long. Relax the knees in the middle if the knees are bent. Taking a moment here in relaxation to consolidate the practice you've just done. Bring your focus to the bases of the feet, the ankles, knees, hip bones and sit bones. The whole of the spine from the base all the way up to the neck. Shoulder blades, shoulders, ribs and collarbones, elbows, wrists, palms of the hands, back of the neck, back of the head, forehead, cheekbones, jawbones, chin, and back to those collarbones. Take a long, deep breath in. And a long sigh out through the mouth. Allow everything relax and to be supported by the floor. The whole body heavy. the lower limbs, the upper limbs, the torso, the head. Taking as much time here in relaxation as you wish. Remembering small movements when you wish to come out. But from me, in the meantime, have peace in your thoughts, have peace in your words, have peace in your hearts. From my heart to yours, Namaste.